My name is John Martin, and really so excited to kick off this strategic planning process to have our mega region become a global internet hub. A couple of quick housekeeping things. We are recording this. A few people couldn't make it today, so we want to just have it as a convenient way for people to catch up to where we are. So be careful what you say. Secondly, I'm really going to go through a lot of material in a fast sort of rapid fire just to get everybody up to speed, and then we'll spend well over half of the time discussing exactly what we have in mind and what we're trying to do. But please keep your microphone muted so we don't have background noise from the 50 people that we anticipated are going to be really on our call today. So today's agenda is really, I'm going to take you through what this meeting's about in a nutshell, and then who's here, and then the overview of global internet hubs and the benefit of becoming one, and then our planning process, at least what it's like today, and we really want your help in finalizing that, and then our schedule, and then have an open discussion about what we're doing and what you guys think about this, and we'll end with our desired outcomes and next steps. So meeting goals. Well, every good meeting should start with meeting goals. And what we want to do is really, today is about a broad perspective on what we're trying to do, in particular, the development process for doing the strategic plan. We want to make sure every question's answered. And even if you have something you think about after the call, email us and we'll answer it for the whole group. And we're going to outline the immediate next steps. So there are a lot of players here, and I appreciate that everybody has raised their hand when we reached out to said, yes, I want to be part of this. We tried to be as thorough as possible in the documents we sent you, but there's some major players that we want to make sure everybody appreciates. Starting with RBA 757 Connects, and also the Global Internet Hub Work Group you may have heard about, and then Go Virginia and the City of Virginia Beach and you guys, the steering committee members. So I'm going to blow through this, but these are important bodies to appreciate in this work. Starting with RBA 757 Connects. This is just a quick background on mega regions. They really started 50 years ago with Boston's 128 and the Research Triangle just to the south of us, and then Silicon Valley. And America can get carved up into about 11 of these mega regions, and it's where 70% of the GDP is generated and about 70% of the population. And up until now, we really weren't on the map. But I tell you, mega regions are gaining traction, especially what has happened with COVID and the pandemic and the management of it. Really managing major planning across traditional borders is now becoming thought of as something that you need a new kind of structure, where cities that are nearby one another don't compete, but rather collaborate for the benefit of both jurisdictions. And so we really were onto this and saying, we want to make our region, our mega region, Richmond and Hampton Roads, something special. And we might be a small mega region, but we certainly are a mighty one. And we kind of sit between two, and maybe one day we join one of those others. But for now, we're really happy trying to make the most of what it could be working together, Hampton Roads and Richmond. So we're calling ourselves the I-64 Innovation Corridor, and we do not have any intention of becoming one MSA. There is no way that's happening. We're going to always be Richmond and Hampton Roads. But what we do want to do is really connect to each other in a way that drives the economic success of both regions. That's really what this is about. And we've been doing this for 10 years. The Port of Virginia actually manages the Richmond Marine Terminal, and it came out of CEOs in both markets over the last 10 years or 10 years ago working together to saying, how do we find ways to help each other? And this was a big one, and it really is the success of the Richmond Marine Terminal now that the Port of Virginia manages it. And so about 5 years ago, we really got serious, and we became a 501c3 and raise money and now have an incredible blue chip roster of board members and organizations, and really working together. These are some of the sponsors that we have, our corporate supporters. You probably recognize many of these logos. And we have a formal structure. We have an executive committee that meets every 2 weeks, and a board of directors of 75 positions. And then we have something called the Mega Region Institutional Council. And I want to quickly point out Laura Robideau, who's on this call, and Greg Gilligan. That's their sum total of our staff for RVA 757 Connect. So we're a small, lean, mean organization. But our board of directors, and you'll get this slide deck and you'll recognize a lot of the names here. It's CEOs and college and university presidents. But this Mega Region Institutional Council has both a parallel structure in both of the regions, the two planning PDCs, the community foundations in both regions, the chambers all along the region, the Greater Richmond Partnership and the Hampton Roads Alliance, Go Virginia Region 4 and 5. You see that, and this is the real secret sauce to how this works. We really learn from this MIC, or this Mega Region Institutional Council. We call it the MIC because they have the microphone to say, hey, this is where we need to focus, or these are ways you could help us. And so we try to work together on a common platform agenda and get things to happen. And these are our priority focus areas. I'm not going to go through all of them. You're going to get this deck, but one that we really have been pushing is the widening of I-64, that gap between Richmond and Williamsburg. It's only 2 lanes, and it's $750 million. And so we have really gone to town and working with a lot of leaders, and Shep Miller, Secretary Miller, was brilliant in the work here, and the governor was all for it. But we got letters and phone calls into the General Assembly and op-eds, and did everything possible, even worked with VDOT. VDOT asked us to work on their grant application. And I tell you, there's success here. The General Assembly came up with a lot of money. The Central Virginia Transportation Authorities put money in. The VDOT's going after a big grant. So we're about there. And I think HR TAC is looking at some other options. So this is huge success to show what can happen with collaboration. And once we're 3 lanes the whole way, it's going to make my life better, going back and forth between the markets, but it's going to make the economies of both regions better and be the driveway for a port. So accelerating the I-64 Innovation Corridor as a global internet hub is another priority that we really have been thinking about over the last year. And thank you to Go Virginia. They funded an opportunity study that RVA 757 Connects did, and it really pointed to this accelerating the digital infrastructure. So we put a work group together, and it's all these organizations. And for 6 months, we kept thinking about the best way to do a strategic plan. And we agreed that we really needed to formalize this structure more and develop a steering committee and raise some funds. So this group, and working together and trying to figure out the way to do this, we went to Go Virginia, and thank you, Go Virginia, again, regions 4 and 5, and they're represented in this call today. Said, yeah, here's a $100,000 planning grant, and that comes with a matching money that you've got to come up with for a planning grant. And in this case, it was $50,000. We surpassed that with just the work group putting funds in, and thank you to all those work group members. And then we also asked some of the other partners like Hampton Roads Chamber and Chamber RVA, and in the organization that I head up, RVA Connects. And so we've got some money now that we can use, and some in-kind support, professional support, to really do a great strategic plan. And I want to just take a minute to thank Virginia Beach and Ray White, who stepped up. You have to be a signatory for a Go Virginia grant. And it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of really important due diligence. And Ray and his group and the Economic Development Department said, yeah, we'll take that on. We'll be the grant signatory. So thank you, Ray, for doing that. And Ray was a big voice in our work group with Henrico County saying, boy, we got to get this entire innovation corridor singing on how to be this global internet hub. And then there's you guys. And I hope you've had a chance to look over the list that we sent out last night. It's very, very impressive. And I mean, everybody, when we felt like we had to personally reach out and not just email the world but wait until people said yes before we shared their names. But this really is an impressive group. And in a minute, I'll show you just how impressive it is when you start looking at it by category. So that's sort of the background on the major players that help get us to where we are today. And now you guys are going to take us forward and where we're going to go and build this plan. But I want to quickly just go through what a global internet hub is and what are the benefits for becoming one. And I feel like this is a section where I'm taking coals to Newcastle, because so many of you folks are experienced in this category of technology and internet hubs. But our tech explosion is real, and And it is increasing at an increasing slope in terms of the number of transistors you get on an integrated chip. And this is Moore's law, but you can see where we are now. It's, put on your seatbelt in terms of what's about to happen. And that technology is run by data. And so if you look at this chart, and by every chart I've ever seen on this statistics, the trend line is exponential in terms of how much data we're going to have on the planet. And that has to be managed. And it's managed and allowed to flow freely through the light of speed through these data networks and the digital infrastructure. And so what has happened is that there's just some natural hubs that get created where you have these physical locations where the carrier networks and social networks and cloud services and IT service providers, they all sort of co-locate and interconnect. And where that hyper-connection takes place, it becomes a global internet hub called an internet exchange point. And they're all over the country in the US and all over the world. And I tell you, when you have the offshore cables, which 90% of the internet traffic flows through, they become global internet hubs. And there's a service, Telegeography, who actually, it's a firm, an IT firm, they actually rank and rate global internet hubs. And I've got Marseille highlighted there for a reason I'm going to come back to, but becoming a global internet hub is a designation that brings worldwide attention and potentially more investment in your location because of just the hyperconnectivity that's going on. From our early work, and this is going to be a format for us to think about in doing our strategic plan, these are the 10 criteria, the factors of success in becoming an internet hub, and in particular a global internet hub. Having the international cables and the preponderance of data centers and that local network of fiber optic cables, and then relatively available, inexpensive power and water, inexpensive land. And you talk to the folks in Loudoun County, they'll tell you their land's getting really expensive, and low risk to natural disasters, and being able to serve a large populations nearby, and then having the tech savvy workforce and economic incentives, and then pro-business leaders that just know how to say yes when these opportunities come up in this category, because the category moves at the speed of light. And so when you think about where we are, in 2017, there were no offshore cables coming ashore in Virginia Beach. And boy, it has changed dramatically since then. We're the only mid-Atlantic hub with deep sea cables. There are a lot of legacy cables in New York and Miami, but the cables that we have in place here can carry 70% of the capacity of those older cables in New York and Miami. So we are so positioned for the future. And just some of the details about the cables that come ashore in Virginia Beach and soon Sandbridge, they're connected to the United States, to Spain, the United States to France, Puerto Rico, and Brazil. And they are the most modern. And another one is under development, going to South Africa. It's going to be the only one for the US to South Africa. And Virginia Beach has permits in place to do 4 more subsea cables, ready to go. And there's even a new cable that's going to span sort of the eastern seaboard called the Confluence Cable. And that's going to connect Myrtle Beach, Jacksonville, Miami, and Virginia Beach and New Jersey. So boy, if you look at those 8 subsea cables and just go out into the future, we're going to potentially be the largest subsea cable hub in North America, which is really exciting. And all the work that Dominion's doing with some of its partners offshore off Virginia Beach, that's really renewable, reliable offshore wind. And that's part of the story too, because you just want the data centers to operate no matter what happens. And so this is really just starts to show how integrated and complex this story is. It's like a mosaic, and Hampton Roads is part of this story. I think Bob Crum, you probably are on the call here. It seems like every month there's a new groundbreaking for this fiber network ring. I don't know if you want to share for a minute.
Sure. Thank you, John. Can you hear me okay, John?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good morning, everybody. So John asked me just to say a couple words of what we've been doing as a Hampton Roads region. We've been planning at the PDC now for some time about how to connect to these subsea cables and provide a regionally interconnected fiber network that connects to these cables and really off-ramps this ultra-fast service around the Hampton Roads region. So we've had a pretty exciting couple of months. Back in April, we broke ground on a 120-mile Southside fiber ring that's going to connect to the cables in Virginia Beach and interconnect the cities of Virginia Beach and Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and Chesapeake. So that is under construction. And then just earlier this month, we held our second groundbreaking, which is going to connect to that ring and extend further out west into Isle of Wight County, western rural Suffolk, and all of Southampton County around Franklin. That's going to be another 2,000 fiber miles that we'll be building. So pretty exciting. We're going to see $60 million of investment in our south side, building over 2,300 miles of fiber here within the next 3 years. So that's really exciting. And then, John, I'll just conclude by saying that we are in the process of working with our partners on the peninsula, led by Hampton and Newport News. And we're going to be submitting a federal broadband grant application, which is due September 30th, right, to extend our fiber network through the two tunnels and start creating the partner ring on the peninsula. And certainly key locations that we're interested in, including Jefferson Lab, to be able to make certain we can get this ultra fast service to them. So, John, thanks for just the opportunity to say a few words there.
And Ray White, if you want to share anything on Virginia Beach that I might have missed, but it's a lot of exciting things that are happening in Virginia Beach, and we'll move up 64 in just a second and talk about what's happening in Henrico and in Richmond area.
Well, absolutely, and thanks for the overview of the items that you've mentioned. But the biggest, latest news was certainly the 4 new landing sites in Virginia Beach at Sandbridge. We feel eventually we could get up to 8, possibly to 12 cables landing in Virginia Beach. So we're evaluating other sites right now for the future. But we're in a ready, set, go position right now to take advantage of this. The interest in the data centers has been tremendous. We appreciate our partners so far being on the steering committee here to help us through this process. So we're really excited about this opportunity of joining together to benefit the mega region in Virginia Beach.
That's great. That's great. And you'll hear more from Ray, and you'll hear from Dominion Energy too, as a big player in putting this plan together and was part of the work group. And so, moving up to Richmond, and it's so interesting when you think about this mega region. This initiative, this strategic plan is actually the great metaphor for working together, because it takes the offshore cables coming ashore and then everything that's going on in Henrico to really have this story, this compelling story about being a global internet hub. And Anthony Ramello is on the call here. And Anthony's been a big player in that work group. And I'll just, share just a little bit here, but, you really want to tap into the networks that reach America. And I tell you, there are a couple of major facilities in Henrico County that have been real big investments. And here you see, Facebook's called Meta now, but they're huge investment in this facility, and also QTS in Richmond, which is the 4th largest integration building in the world. And QTS is on the call here and has just purchased another 200 acres and expand this facility. But this is really connecting to a lot of the networks that serve America and allow the data to be flowing from America and to America right through us, right through the innovation corridor. And then we have a whole lot of enterprise data centers as well. Anthony, would you like to share additional thoughts on what's going on in Henrico County?
Yeah, I think you said it. You think you said it well, John. The only thing I would add beyond data centers is what's happening with the DKIX exchange, yeah, which is in Henrico and Hanover, and there you go, right on time. So you might want to mention that.
Yeah, and this is really an incredible interconnected digital ecosystem. It was started 25 years ago and in Germany as this exchange platform. It's got a lot of locations now. It's the key is it's carrier and data center neutral, and it connects from Henrico County. It connects to some of these large cities you never associate with Richmond or Virginia Beach, and in the economic development world, but Chicago and Phoenix and Dallas. I mean, the fact is you can reach 80% of the US population in 2 milliseconds with data. So it's part of our story of the power of what we have here end to end in our mega region to be tapping into really the fastest network on the planet. And please build on that, Anthony.
Yeah, it's again, I think you said it well.
Okay.
John, DKIX continues to expand worldwide, and I mean the way to think about this in very simple terms is that if you think about, if you had an on-ramp from your driveway onto 95 or 64, that's what this does for internet access. It just gets businesses direct connectivity, neutral connectivity. They just published a white paper. We can send it to Laura so she can send it to the group on some key projects that they're working on, where they have folks using Office 365, and they've been able to reduce latency by 90%, or in layman's terms, it means Office 365 is 90% faster than it was as a result of the exchange.
Yep. And Vinay Nagpal's on the call too, and is going to be helping us with this project. And he has got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this effort. In fact, these last 2 slides are from his deck. But we're going to have at our meetings coming up, we're going to have a number of experts pulled from the steering committee go into more detail about what we have here and why it's such a compelling asset for us. You just heard from Anthony, one of the quotes he said when QTS just announced its expansion and buying more acres around that 4th largest integration site. 3 years ago, 0 internet traffic, East Coast internet traffic going through Enrico. Today, 18% of the East Coast internet traffic. So, I mean, that's a great story right there. And so where is this going to go? How fast can we make this happen? And the reason why we want to do all this are the advantages of being a global internet hub and recognized worldwide. I mean, obviously the funding that comes out of data centers and taxing and all that helps municipal and county and city budgets, but the increase to high-speed internet is so important for us. Everybody realizes that now more than ever, living through COVID and remote work. But it really is about the city and being smart cities. And think about coming autonomous vehicles. They're all going to be hyper-connected. So we've got to have a network that can handle this increase in data. And we got to get it everywhere. And really, you've seen what's happening with healthcare and telehealth, and being able to support all of that and increase work from home opportunities. And that's not only for the private and public sector, but it's for the military as well. And there's some folks from the military on this call, and then serving underserved neighborhoods. So, I mean, the list goes on and on. There are just so many advantages to having the world's best digital infrastructure in your backyard. But there's some real clear business advantages, that more reliable service and lower cost, and then lower latency to really have that competitive advantage. When I think about this, and I grew up in Richmond, and I think about the future in economic development, and I just didn't like the day that Charlotte got our banks. Well, this might be a time for us to get the banks back, having this incredible advantage, just a slight advantage. You can't work with a data set until it's fully downloaded, but having this infrastructure, world-class infrastructure, is going to support edge computing and attract a larger talent pool. And the biggest thing is it's going to give us this economic development advantage, business advantage. This new study just came out from the World Economic Forum, said 70% of the new value created in the economy over the next decade is going to be based on digitally enabled platform business models. So you got to have the infrastructure to make this work. So this really is going to be our business backbone. And that long-term advantage is the pace of technology and the adoption of new technology is going to go so fast. I don't know if regions that aren't with us could keep up. I think the gap is going to grow wider and wider. So this really is a huge opportunity for us to really get that advantage and sustain it, because of who we attract here and what we've built here. So we really think this next global internet hub isn't a city, it's really a mega region. And we're really thankful for the Chamber, RVA, and Hampton Roads Chamber. They put on an event every year called Convergence. And this past year, it was in Williamsburg on October 27th. And we had people, we talked about the global internet hub as the theme, and we had folks beamed in from Marseille, France. And it was fascinating listening to them. They made it to the top 10 global internet hub in such a rapid ascendancy. And so that's why we had them in as part of this meeting. And we really tried to understand, what did you guys do? How did y'all figure this out so fast? And they said, y'all have a lot of the great things that are going on in global internet hubs. That list is right. And from what we could tell, you're way on your way, but you don't have a strategic plan. And they said that's what really gave them put them over the top as a tipping point. They created a 10-year strategic plan that organized and built a community around becoming a global internet hub. So I wish we could say we're the only people that thought of this, but we're really taking a page out of their book and to say, well, how can we really accelerate this idea and do it in a way that everybody's on board and everybody's part of the solution. So I want to be really clear here that we're saying we want to become a global internet hub, and we do, and we will become one. But it's not for the designation. It's for actually what it means. It means that we're going to have a rip-roaring 21st century economy, and we're going to have that digital backbone that we really need. And we're going to be the place that people want to be. And when you get that critical mass and more people locating here, especially the tech and adjacent tech talent, it's the recipe for success in the 21st century. So yes, let's get that designation, but let's not lose sight on what we're really trying to do with our strategic plan. And so what's our planning process? Well, we do a lot of strategic plans at the firm that I run, SIR, and it really is a process. And so it starts with the right group, and you put together the right resources and support the planning process. You conduct the situation review, you identify missing information, you go out and you get it. We want to hire top international consultants to help us. Then you review the findings and you bring it all together in a plan. Then you package that plan in a way that it is not going to stay on the shelf, but on the desk of people in the General Assembly, on the desk of people that are the operators in this category now, and potential investors that can help us move faster than we would on our own. That's the whole key here. So that steering committee will put a big check here. I am so thankful that everybody said yes. We got a few outstanding invitations, and we'll put them on the list as soon as they agree. But let's support this committee. And so we're building a website. It's going to be a really simple project website. But on this website, you're going to have what are the project goals, who's involved, who are the funders, and we're going to have all our meeting documents. Like, you'll be able to go and get the PowerPoint deck beforehand. You'll see who's on the committee and the schedule. So this is the segment for today, but you're going to have on every one of our meetings, you're going to have this, plus all the relevant studies that we found. And then we're going to move to conducting this comprehensive situation review and identifying areas that we need more information on. We have found already 30 relevant reports, studies, white papers, and we are mining those right now and organizing them around those 10 global internet factors of success. And where do we stack up as a corridor? So the work group, the Global Internet Hub work group that organized this planning approach, will look at this document and finalize it in the next week. And then we're going to send it out to you. It's already got a fancy looking cover, but here's the table of contents. So it's going to do an overview of global internet hubs and the benefits of becoming one, and then these factors of success, how we're doing. And there are a few other Virginia-based digital infrastructure initiatives. We're going to list those because we want to tie into them. And most importantly, this document is going to say, so what are the implications for our planning process? What additional information do we need? So we're going to ask you, you're going to get this on August 17th. A week later, we're going to have our meeting, but we want you to come to the meeting. It's going to be a PowerPoint document, quick read, but we want you to come to the meeting saying, wow, this is what I really took away. These are some really interesting things I never thought of before. But then what's missing in terms of information, especially across those 10 factors? Because what we're going to do in the next meeting is start thinking about, where do we allocate the funding that we have in terms of the international consultants we need to hire? And that's where we get to the next phase of this is hiring those consultants and then reviewing what they have to deliver for us in terms of more insights that can be tied together. This slide is just an example of the potential things that we may decide that we should spend our money on. And so the international rankings, well, that's one group that does the international rankings. So why not hire them and have them be part of this plan and assess where they think we are and what it's going to take to move up. And then tax incentives are really important. JLARC did a great assessment of that. Let's share that, but let's see if we need to go deeper on that as a group. And then the cable landings, you know, where Virginia Beach is now at Sandbridge involved, which is part of Virginia Beach, but we heard from Marseille, part of their secret was spreading out this cable landing. So do we have enough information there? And then Stan from Dominion Energy has really been instrumental in connecting Dominion to the data centers. And is there enough information there on where this can go and the best locations? And then workforce education and talent pipeline. We've got the workforce councils from the Richmond region and Hampton Roads on the call on the steering committee. This is important with the higher education players on the call. You know, we got to make sure that we are lined up in terms of that talent pipeline that can really support this industry, because this industry is going to support so many other industries. And then bring all those insights together and package them in a plan that can go to our key stakeholders. We're going to have a final report that's going to look really slick once we figure out exactly what we need to do and specifically who needs to do it and what kind of funds we need. And we're going to turn our project website into a legacy website that's part of our commitment to Go Virginia, part of the grant. So we're going to have all these inventory of all these other studies. We're going to have our own studies. We really want, as a legacy to this project, that can become available, because when you look across Virginia, I mean, a rising tide lifts all the ships, and Virginia is becoming a real tech center. And so we know Northern Virginia and Loudoun, and now everybody's going to start to hear our story, but there's a lot. And also in terms of cooperation and integration, so we can always be the #1 state to do business and the best state to live. And so it gets to our final step, which is going to be in December. Our plan is going to be off the shelf on the desk. We're going to ask for money to fund the things that we need. That's part of Go Virginia. This is a plan. And there'll be other people we'll go to as well. And so that's the exciting thing about this. This is not just for fun. This is for real, and it's for the future of Virginia. And so I'm almost through, and we'll open it up. But every plan has a secret sauce, and I'm gonna tell you, you guys are the secret sauce. So the work group said we got to make sure we got everybody represented here. And so what we really have are multiple perspectives. And so we have gone broad across about 10 categories and tried to find leaders in each category that can represent us. We got the Commonwealth of Virginia, and thank you, Secretary Cummings, Secretary of Finance is here, and VEDP is part of this, and really excited that they're going to be here. So we have the Commonwealth represented. We have employers, large employers represented here. We have utility infrastructure players represented here. We have planning agencies, the PDC and Plan RVA and Reinvent Hampton Roads. We have chambers represented here. We have economic development agencies represented here, and not only the regional, individual Henrico and Virginia Beach and the city of Richmond, but we have the regional ones, the Greater Richmond Partnership and the Alliance, and the Virginia Gateway region and Chesterfield County. And then workforce development agencies, I mentioned before, Capital Region and the Hampton Roads Workforce Councils. And then educational institutions, and delighted to see at every level, every kind of educational institution here. And so this is an important group to listen to and to team up with the workforce councils and even their curriculum, which I know all of these institutions are embracing. And then the international digital infrastructure, really so thankful that these major players would join us and be part of this. And really, we're going to learn so much from them on what they need and how they see us relative to some other markets that they play in. And then the broadband infrastructure. And you heard a little bit from Bob Crum on what's happening with the Southside Network Authority, but these other major carriers. And then cyber and supporting digital infrastructure companies. And so we really tried to cover the waterfront, and that includes the military. And so Rick has really been helping us and bringing in some folks to listen. The military is not involved in economic development, but they certainly are involved in understanding where a market's headed and how we can support them better. So we're delighted there's some folks on the call from the military, and I think this list will grow. So what's the role of the steering committee? It's provide this informed perspective from these 10 different lenses. Read that situation review document that'll come out on the 17th. Think about any missing information. Help us point to research that's needed the most. Review those findings. Then we're going to really arrive at connecting the dots and coming up with strategies and approve those, and then look at the final report and suggest any edits or what we're missing. And then once we have that final report, help us move the cause forward. So who are we missing is a great question. As you look at that list, think about who else we could have. We know you're not going to be able to make every meeting, but through that website and getting a document in advance of the meeting, if you can't make it, you can always send us a quick email. Send, I read it. This is what I think. We're going to record the meeting so you can look at it after it happens. We're going to do everything we can to make it easy on you. But we really want to have an organized march down the field, due date, end of December for this plan. So in the documents we sent to date and in this document, you see all these dates we've already carved out. We would like to meet in person because there's nothing like that magic. And Williamsburg is a central location, but maybe there are a couple of digital infrastructure sites that we can stop at and have our meeting and actually see it. So more to come on that, but our next meeting is going to be in Williamsburg on August 25th. This slide you need to print out and make sure it's in your calendar. And then in a few minutes, we'll talk about that. You know, we could do this all virtually, but I think it's going to make sense to come together for some of these meetings where we can hear from one another and we can learn from one another and from the consultants we're going to hire and start to see this plan take shape. So we're going to open it up here for Q&As and discussion and see what you guys think, see what you've agreed to sign on for, and just think about, you know, can we dedicate some time at meetings for sharing like this, and can we hold some meetings in person, and should we have subcommittees? I don't want to like hook you in here and say it's just 6 meetings or 5 meetings and then, oh my gosh, now you got to be on a subcommittee. But does it make sense to have a subcommittee or at least one meeting of all those different segments to weigh in at the appropriate time? So again, I'm going to stop here and go off share screen and just open it up to everybody and thank everybody for coming and being part of this. I think we're not losing anybody, so that's a good sign.
Hey, John, this is Michael Karafotis from Bank of America. So thanks for putting this on. I joined a little late. I'm here at Virginia State University, meeting with a number of up and coming students here. So I think it's a nice connection. Maybe I can even bring some of this back to the discussion. As we go forward, I mean, the schedule you showed there, and I'm looking forward to seeing it because I wasn't able to write it all down quickly, but pretty rapid through the end of the year. Do we already have a point of view on what are the types of investments that are already being made or need to be made to kind of drive more utilization of this infrastructure? You know, the one thing that I think about, and you were saying this, I'm sure we'll get into this more a bit later, is, you know, part of the benefit of having all of this infrastructure is what it provides to the rest of the world and rest of the even the US population in terms of kind of low latency network. How do we ensure that we don't just become a utility, right? So we're kind of the back office closet and everybody else is getting the benefit. Whereas, you know, here we're kind of made everybody else better, but we're not able to tap into it ourselves. I'm just kind of wondering if we sort of thought through, you know, what needs to be here, what doesn't need to be here, et cetera.
That's a great question. I want to, you know, turn to some of the experts in the category on that.
And maybe we don't have it yet. Maybe that's just something we need to think through. I mean, I'm starting to list out all my questions. So
Yeah, no,
we'll get to that in some of the other meetings.
It
I'd
is
love
something.
to-
It's also something that we want to bring in a equity lens on this as well. For the future of our region, our mega region. So I think that's going to be an important thing. But I think that's what we really want out of the plan is where are those specific investments needed, and at what scale are they needed? So
I'd love to speak to that if I might jump in.
Yes.
That was
Catherine
as
from
terrific as
Wayfair.
every one of these presentations has been. John, thank you so much. I'm Catherine Rowe, the president at William & Mary. And so we're smack dab in the middle of the mega region. And I was hired by one of the great minds of the mega region, Tom Franz, from one of those other mega regions where I grew up on the 128 corridor. And this is an incredibly powerful and important vision. I think it's something that can be achieved in 5 to 10 years with the right investment. And I just want to say that the Council of Presidents for the universities in the region are actively talking about how we can be partners in contributing talent pipelines, in attracting the talent to Virginia and keeping it here, and working on internship relationships and certifications that might be needed for industry, and in helping to sponsor and anchor sites where businesses of various different sizes might land and partner with universities to seed, new business applications. So really trying to think about that holistic pathway, Michael, that you just asked. To my mind, that's what you were asking the question about. And I think what this planning process could helpfully be about. And having talked with all of the presidents in this region, we are all in to be your partners in this. We are, I think, stronger than many understand, not just at William & Mary, but elsewhere in the broader tech adjacent and tech anchoring fields, particularly in data analytics, which is going to be the toolkit for utilizing data at speed. So in every industry, and the big differentiator. So we hope to help you think through that challenge of pipeline.
That's great. And so, Catherine, it sounds like you guys are really already organized for other reasons, but you could really, when I think about, and I just cringe saying, let's create subcommittees. I don't want to just immediately go there, but it sounds like you have a group that could almost de facto serve as that.
You and could easily just take and run with what we think we could supply, and then we would like your feedback and guidance on it. In terms of pipeline development and investment needed. One of the things that I took away from the presentation from Marseille, and I think, Michael, you were speaking to this, is that the challenge with high-speed data is that the value of that data is generally going to accrue where it's used. And what we have is a powerful set of landing points where the users could be anywhere in the country. But what we want to do is create user bases, the talent and the businesses, the industry growth in our region as well. Otherwise, we're just the back office, as you said, Michael, rather than the front of the house. And I think higher ed is really importantly a partner in developing front of the house, working with businesses that might land here, again, to design pipeline pathways, maybe collaborating and hiring faculty. So that I did that for 4 years in Western Mass with a major billion-dollar global actuarial agency. And what we did was build a 40-person think tank in their field with their algorithms in about 3.5 years. That's how you keep really fantastic talent and capture them early in their arc before they get hired away north by another big player. And as I hear the business leaders in our region, I hear the radical transformation of the arrival of Amazon on every hiring decision, every position. And I think we need to be really thoughtful in how we attract talent to Virginia and then diversify where they stay. So we're here to be part of it. And I'll just hazard and say, yes, that group of 5, Anthony Stefanidis, who's on this call, is my colleague, my wonderful cybersecurity specialist, who's the representative for that group. I think we could work really well with you, John.
Yeah,
And
that's
Chev is
great.
involved, and I hope the EDP will be as well. They're amazing for us all here.
Hey,
John,
this
just
is,
to piggyback on what Catherine was saying. By the way, my name is Vinay Nagpal. I'm with Globix, and John, thanks for the mention earlier. I'm
Yes.
really glad to see this come together. John, you and I have been talking about this for a while, including the prior couple of meetings that we had with the folks from Marseille and others. I think clearly that was very promising, but at the same time, I think to Catherine's point, I do feel it's important for us collectively to highlight the various industries that could benefit from this infrastructure, and really kind of bring out the fact that this infrastructure, whether it's in Virginia Beach, whether it's in Sandston, along the way, on the sides of the highway, in terms of terrestrial fiber cables, it's for us collectively to be taken advantage of, to be leveraged, and how it leads to the economic growth of the area. And then
Right.
you kind of take a further step to, as Catherine was saying, it's definitely not just restricted to the area. The impact is going to be felt across the Commonwealth and across the eastern seaboard of the United States, as you talked about, John, in your opening comment. So I think identifying those industries, having the various different verticals, like we have, representation from Bank of America here, of course, the academia. But similarly, if you look at it, digital infrastructure impacts across the board every industry, but I think kind of compartmentalizing it from that perspective. And also when it comes to housing of that infrastructure, right? What's in Virginia Beach at the cable landing station, and I give Raymond White and his team a lot of credit for actively working on a diverse landing in Sandbridge, looking at other potential landings. Those are the kind of efforts that are going to encourage more subsea cable systems from an industry perspective to land. Of course, you have the cable landing station, you have data centers, and I think having that in an open environment setting, like the way the network access point or the QTS, which when NAP is set up in Sandston, it's not a NAP just for QTS, it's a NAP for the region. You have, and I think John Farrell is here from QTS. I saw him a little while ago. And John can even talk through in terms of, within that region, other data centers, other carriers, other enterprises that are connected to it. So again, the whole premise here is to have that open architecture, and really for us collectively, Virginia Beach, Sandston, terrestrial fiber, subsea cable systems, internet exchange point, we look at it from a holistic standpoint.
Yes.
Hey, John.
Hey.
John Mark Clutt here.
Mark. Yeah.
If I could, you were asking, so who else should be on this board to help us in this mission?
Mhm.
I really think the folks that own the undersea cables,
Mhm.
most of you have heard of these companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, that we don't need to get every one of them, but we get the big ones and say, look, help us design this for your benefit. They are for-profit companies. They've already spent $1 billion plus on these cables, and they're looking for a return on investment. And I think we can offer that to them, as well as looking out for our own needs. That's all I have to say.
Yes.
And I think, Mark, that's a great point, by the way. I think we should have Gerardo from Telxius. Telxius is involved in actually all 3 cable systems. I thought I saw his name there earlier.
Yes.
And Telxius is a partner in the Maria cable, the owner in Brusa. Hey, hi, Gerardo, I see you now. Maybe, Gerardo, you can give us a bit of perspective from your standpoint and Telxius's role in this strategic area of the mid-Atlantic United States for subsea cables, Gerardo.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Vinay. Appreciate that. So yes, like was mentioned, we own and operate 2 of the cables coming into Virginia Beach, and we land a 3rd cable, the Google Do Not cable. But I think what Mark just mentioned is key. They've made like was said, they've made significant investments on subsea cable, and they do have a lot of requirements that to achieve what they're looking for. So, for example, the development of new fiber rings that you guys are doing here. So they definitely have a lot of interest in that space, and there's a huge opportunity right now just with the cables that are already landed, because most of those cables have several fiber pair, which is tons of capacity. So there's several pairs of fiber there that aren't active yet. So when they are active, that's going to, as they are activated, it's going to create more requirements for more diverse networks going back to other areas in the U.S. from the Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach area, Richmond area. So I think it's very important, the input of the major the owners of the cable systems, the Google, the Microsoft, the Facebook, and we can reach out to them as well. They're our customers, right? We work with them in partnership and as customers on those cables. So any way we can help, definitely glad to do it.
Well, thank you for being part of this.
Yeah.
Secretary Cummings, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I've got to jump off here, so I just wanted to make a couple comments because this ties completely into some of the strategies that we're talking about from a corporate recruitment to the Commonwealth. And I guess BDP was not able to join today, so I'll speak on behalf of all of us. This is one of the top priorities for this governor. He views the ability to get more individuals, families, and companies to come to Virginia as a key metric for success in what we're doing. And we're focused on being much more offensive and proactive in targeting industries. And so this fits right into that. And I guess I want to follow up later on how we start to develop what you are talking about is the companies with the high content jobs that we want to bring to Virginia to build around this. The one thing I wanted to just mention to everybody, and Michael, I'd love to catch up with you. Between myself and the governor, we have a lot of financial services contacts at very senior levels. And we're doing a bit of a beta test on this proactive approach to industry sectors, to the financial services industry, selling Norfolk, Hampton Roads, Richmond, Nova, yes, but that doesn't need a lot of sale. Everybody knows about that. But pitching now at the highest content possible, of job content possible, to get Richmond and Hampton Roads considered as another site for talent. Capital One has 13,000 employees and is actually quite high content. Truist, Bank of America, I don't know as much about that. And I'd invite anybody on this call who might have an interest in sharing some thoughts or participating in this to please contact me or the people at VEDP, and love to have you join in because we're just getting this kicked off and going to bring in the regional folks and then start making direct contacts. We've already contacted 2 of the mega banks. They're interested, particularly around Richmond at this point, but would love to have others join in on this and share thoughts. But I think I wasn't sure about what we were going to, about this whole thing. And I'm incredibly excited because I think it's a real differentiator for what we're going to be trying to do. So I appreciate your work on this.
We appreciate you being part of this. Really, we had the governor at our last board meeting, and he was so enthusiastic about this initiative, and delighted that you're representing the cabinet on that. So,
thanks so much.
You bet. All right, Sabrina Joy Hogg, who's with the City of Richmond. Sabrina, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, John. And I'm very happy to see this collaboration. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. You asked whether or not we should have subgroups. I would say if we are thinking about having subgroups, we might want to form one for municipal government, have a subgroup on municipal government, because so much of what is going to will run through the cities. And the infrastructure and the permitting and all of that takes a long time. So if the folks on this call, if we are banded together, we can try to maneuver within our own systems to make sure that we're clearing the hurdles as infrastructure needs to be laid. As the cable comes through, whether it's undergrounding or through towers, you're going to need to go through the cities. So I'd say to streamline some of this, get the right people in those subgroups that we can walk stuff through our respective governments. Being part of municipal government, I can tell you it takes so long to do anything. I think you've all experienced that in some way, shape, or form. So having that group ready to go when something is coming through in one of our respective cities will help spearhead some of this.
Great. Thank you, Sabrina. Sabrina's got experience both in a high level of the Norfolk's city government and now Richmond, and formerly with Charlotte. So I'm glad you're a part of this. And so I think that question about the, the subcommittees, I think that's a good topic for us when we do get in person and to think about that. And again, not everybody needs to be on a subcommittee, but Sabrina just makes a good point that there are some technical issues that may make sense to have some smaller groups on some sub-assignments. Does anybody else have a question? I know we're getting close to what I wanted just to have this run for an hour today, but I wanted everybody to make sure they knew exactly what they were getting into and what is their process and what's the schedule and what's that outcome that we want. So I'm clicking through and looking at everybody. I don't see any other hands up. If you have your hand up, just go ahead and talk now. I see smiles, so I'm just going to take that as a good sign. All right, so I'm just going to finish up here with just a couple of more slides in terms of next steps. We hope we accomplished our goals today for this first meeting. I just really wanted to have an overview in the process. And here are the next steps. So I'm going to send this deck. We'll get this to everybody. So the schedule, and maybe we pull it out separately, but those scheduled meetings coming up, to get those on your calendar and to know that the next one, at least the next one, is going to be in person. The way you want it listed, we took our best shot at it in the roster that we sent out. If you could also send your mailing address in that email, we'll send you the I-64 Innovation Corridor Opportunity Study, which talks about the industries that we want to really invest in, that both the Alliance from Hampton Roads and the Greater Richmond Partnership are targeting. And then know that we're going to send out meeting dates, invite people through the calendar invite. So just expect those Scud missiles to come into your inbox. And then look for a link from us for a document. And we're going to take you to the project website, and that'll be ready on August 11th. So just, click through it. And if there's anything that you think's missing, just as a general project website, and you'll see how the shared documents will work. We're going to keep everything inventoried by meeting. And then on the August 18th, we're going to send that first draft of the situation review. Once that is finalized, and that work group will look at that and make sure it's in good shape. And want you just to think about that document. And again, it's going to be a PowerPoint. You'll be able to click through it in 15 minutes, but you'll be able to see how are we doing, at least from information that we could get our hands on across those 10 measures. And so what are your big takeaways from that document? What information's missing? And where would you think it's best for our resources to be focused? And so that's really going to be the conversation that we're going to have on the 25th. So that's your homework, to look through that deck. And then come to that next meeting. It's going to be in Williamsburg at the Williamsburg Community Center. It's where we had the Convergence 2021 event. It's really conveniently located. And remember, it's different now. You got to build in travel time. So that is going to be a 2-hour meeting, but we'll talk at that meeting about the rest of the schedule and the importance of having some in person and maybe some virtual, some sort of blend. So that's really it. I want to give you this one last thought. It's something that I think about constantly and what we have in front of us. This idea of becoming a global internet hub, not just the designation, but what it really means for us. It has the potential to do more for our two regions in the 21st century than actually the building of the highway 64 and 95 did for us in the 20th century. This is the new superhighway. And it looks from some really smart people that have really thought through this at the beginning, boy, we have a number of cards that have been put on the table that really position us smartly to be a major player for decades to come. So thank you guys very much. We're officially adjourned.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Great
Thanks,
effort.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Goodbye.